Learning how to speak Spanish is way easier than you think. Firstly, you don't need to know all conjugations, you don't need to know all the grammatical rules, and you definitely don't need to know 4,000 words before you can have a basic conversation. Let's be honest, in your mother tongue, which I'm assuming is English, how many words do you actually use on a day-to-day basis? Now think about it for a second. Why on earth would you need to know more words in your target language than you do in your mother tongue? Right. You don't. Which leads me to the first thing I wish I knew before learning Spanish. And this is that you don't have to know everything before speaking. Honestly, you just have to get speaking. It may seem counterintuitive and you want to be over-prepared before your first conversation, but that's just not how it works. You have to speak to be able to speak. Right? You have to speak to be able to speak. You're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna sound like an idiot, but that's fine. It's part of the process. If you're an advanced beginner, say A2, B1, you'd be surprised with just how much you actually know in the language. You'll be able to have a decent, coherent conversation, express ideas, communicate, understand, and be understood. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, especially when you're starting. So don't feel like you have to be perfect before communicating frequently in Spanish, or even telling people that you speak a little bit of Spanish. What you need to do is get out your comfort zone as soon as possible and start speaking as frequently as possible. Honestly, the sooner the better, and the more frequent the better. Now, some of you may be thinking, okay, who are you to be telling us what we should be doing? Pues, yo soy Patricio y aprendí español en solo 3 meses por mi propia cuenta. De hecho, lo aprendí usando un método bastante inusual. Yo expliqué eso en otro video y les voy a dejar el link para ese video aquí. De todos modos, lo que quiero decir es que creo que tengo los conocimientos suficientes para decirles lo que deberían hacer para mejorar su español, especialmente si hablan inglés como lengua materna. Así que por favor, no me vengan con eso de Patricio, ¿quién eres tú para decirnos qué deberíamos hacer? Por favor, no lo hagan. Ahora, vamos a hablar de la segunda cosa que me hubiese gustado saber antes de aprender español. Vamos. Now, the second thing I wish I knew before learning Spanish, and I bloody wish I knew this, is that you don't need to worry about your accent. Look, you're going to sound like an idiot, and it's fine. We've all been there, it's just part of the process. What's more important than trying to imitate or master any one accent is understanding different accents in different contexts. What do I mean? Think about things from the English perspective, right? When you listen to people speaking English from various places, you understand those accents irrespective of where they're from. Maybe not all the time. I mean, sometimes I don't understand Scottish people or folks from Newcastle, but you know, someone from Liverpool, I can understand that. Someone from Manchester, I can understand that. When somebody has African accent and they're talking like this, I can understand. Or like even a Miami accent, pero like, how are you? I want to go to live, you know? I want to go to Kiki, you know? Or like a New York kind of accent or LA accent, I can distinguish those and understand them. Won't be able to imitate them per se, but I can understand them in context, and that's the most important thing, understanding the accents, not necessarily being able to imitate or master them. Now, it may be frustrating because at the beginning you sound like an idiot, you sound like a gringo, but luckily for you, most Latin Americans in particular tend to be quite accommodating when they know you're learning their language. They're quite helpful, they'll walk you through sentences, so you don't need to worry about your accent or be too pressed about how you sound. In the beginning, it's really important just to speak. Don't worry about mastering any one accent. The most important thing is to understand the multitude of accents in context, right? That's the most important thing for real. To be honest, you're always going to sound like a gringo a little bit. That's the honest truth. Unless you live somewhere for an extended period of time or you really try to master a specific accent. Now, with the accent you hear me speaking with on camera, to be honest, it's a little bit of a camera voice, because if you spoke to me day to day, I probably don't sound like that. Mi acento es más relajado, día a día. Yo no pronuncio todo si no es necesario. Si tú me entiendes, pues yo voy a hablar así. ¿Sí me entiendes? O sea, I don't really try day to day, depends on the context. So, and that's the same with my English, depending on where I am and who I'm with, my English could change. It really depends on the environment and the context. So again, don't worry too much about your accent. What's more important is understanding a variety of accents in context, right? That's the most important thing. When you're speaking in the beginning, people tend to be quite accommodating, especially in Latin America. Now, moving on to the third thing I wish I knew before learning Spanish. So you need to actually focus on why you want to learn the language. If you're learning for work, then focus on vocabulary that relates to your job. If you're learning for a holiday, then focus on vocabulary that pertains to a holiday. If you're learning for shits and giggles, well, I can't help you with that, but I'm sure there's something in this video that could be of value to you, so please stick around to watch. Also, whilst here, please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Now, why you want to learn the language is going to dictate the kind of vocabulary you want to master in the first instance. Once you get comfortable with that vocabulary, you're going to feel confident enough to go out and explore and try to learn more vocabulary. But in the first instance, it's very important to understand why you want to learn the language, master that vocabulary before broadening your horizons. And this for me is probably one of the best ways to start out learning Spanish. It's no use learning a bunch of words that you're never going to use. I mean, ultimately, you're going to need to know more vocabulary. But in the beginning, just focus on things that are important to you. This will also help to keep you motivated when the going gets tough. And trust me, the going gets tough. So moving on from that, let's talk about the fourth thing I wish I knew before learning Spanish. And this is that you ought to structure your learning. Early on in the learning process, you need to approach every conversation with a goal in mind. If you book a conversational class on Italki with a professor, for example, go to the class and lead the conversation. Say, today I want to talk about books. Today I want to talk about the kitchen. Today I want to talk about sports. Today I want to talk about the gym. Don't let the other person lead the conversation, because more often than not, if they're charging you for a conversation, they're going to long out that conversation so they can charge you for another conversation. So dictate terms early on. Say to a professor or somebody on Italki, hey, I want to discuss this thing today, and today we are going to discuss this thing because I really want to hone in on this topic. This can expedite your learning. It kind of relates to the third point about learning things that you're interested in, or understanding why you want to learn the language and mastering vocabulary that's interesting to you, because this is going to help you build your confidence. Once you have confidence in a particular topic, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable moving on to another subject. So early on in the learning process, dictate conversations with professors and teachers. Don't let them tell you what they think you should be learning. Say, no, I want to learn the language for this reason, and we're going to discuss this topic. Trust me, it goes a long way when you really structure your learning and think about what you're trying to master before moving on to another topic. Remember, you know why you want to learn the language. Nobody else really knows that. So you need to dictate terms early on. Don't let people try to sway you, tell you, oh, you should learn about this. You know, what's the point? Because you know why you want to learn the language. So do not be misled. Do not let the enemies of progress mislead you. Do not let them stray you away from your path to success. You know what your ideal version of you looks like speaking Spanish. So work towards that. Don't waste time listening to other people's views on what you should be learning, when deep down you really know what you want to learn and why you want to learn, right? Now, the fifth and final thing I wish I knew before learning Spanish is that going to a Spanish-speaking country as soon as you get comfortable with the language is one of the best things you can do to expedite your learning. When I finally went to a Spanish-speaking country after learning for a few months, I really felt my learning curve increase and increase. To be fair, I should have just gone sooner or started out in a Spanish-speaking country. I would perhaps suggest doing a 10-day intensive immersion like I did in my other video, which you can find here, and then immediately hopping on a plane to a Spanish-speaking country. This is also the beauty of learning the language. You can go to so many places: España, Puerto Rico, Cuba, República Dominicana, Argentina, and the list goes on. In fact, you can even go to Miami and communicate exclusively in Spanish if you really want to. And there you have it, 5 things I wish I knew before learning Spanish. Hopefully, this can help you guys on your language learning journeys. If you like this video, then check out my other video on how I became fluent in Spanish in just 6 months. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.